There is something happening every day that few people notice. Humanity is gradually losing connection with itself, not because of a lack of time, but because of an excess of noise. Everything moves too fast. Too many things to do, too many things to achieve, too many things to prove. Yet the faster they run, the emptier they feel. The more they gain, the more they fear losing. And in this endless chase, one thing has been forgotten: the silence of the soul. I once stood in a crowded square surrounded by the sound of car horns, people talking, advertisements flashing on giant screens, and suddenly realized no one there was truly present. Each person was absorbed in their own world, a world built from worries, expectations, and doubts. But behind it all, something has always been waiting, a call that does not sound through noise yet is clearer than any sound, the call to return to the true self. This world has never lacked light. People have simply stared too long into the darkness. They are hypnotized by scarcity, conditioned by fear, controlled by concepts that were never proven. They believe peace is a luxury reserved only for those who are settled. They believe power lies beyond their reach, and that life is something to be endured. But the truth is the opposite. Peace does not come from outside. It originates within, and it has never left. The more chaotic the world becomes, the stronger the inner call grows. It is a kind of ancient memory, not of the brain, but of the soul. A deep voice that reminds you there is something beyond all definitions, something that cannot be shaken by change, cannot be worn down by time, cannot depend on anyone or anything, and that is your true essence. People ask, how do I know which is the true call and which is the echo of the ego? The answer is simple. The true call never makes you shrink back in fear, never makes you feel small, lacking, or unworthy. It does not shout, it does not coerce, it does not bargain. It only whispers, but with immense power. It promises no reward, but brings recognition. And when you hear it, even for a fleeting moment, everything around you seems to stop. No more rushing, no more confusion. Only a knowing, clear, profound, beyond words. Awakening is not a journey to find something new. It is the letting go of what is false. It is to stop believing in the masks layered over you through the years. It is to remember who you were before the world told you who you had to be. And the first step of awakening is not knowledge, but the courage to pause in the unceasing spin and listen, to pause in the midst of struggle and feel, to pause in the crowd and return to yourself. No one can answer the call for you. No one can awaken on your behalf. But when you are ready, the universe will speak in unison. A book will fall into your hands at the right moment. A sentence will strike at the right place. An event will occur not to punish you, but to awaken you. The outer chaos is not random. It is the mirror reflecting what is fracturing within humanity. But for that very reason, it carries the greatest opportunity, the opportunity to return. You do not need to become a better person. You only need to return to what was already good. You do not need to strive to be worthy, for you have never been unworthy. You do not need to run somewhere else to find peace, for peace has never left you. What is needed is not more knowledge, but the release of outdated beliefs. Not learning how to control life, but learning how to trust life. Not doing more, but remembering what has always been present. There is a silent center within you, unmoved by all turbulence. It is unaffected by markets, weather, or the words of others. It does not measure you by achievements or past mistakes. It knows only one thing: you are a sacred part of the whole. And when you return to that place, you are no longer a victim of circumstances. You are a creator, no longer living in anxiety about what is to come, but living in the awareness that everything you need is already here. In this chaotic world, not everyone hears the call. But once you hear it, truly hear it, you cannot go back. You cannot pretend you never knew. You cannot continue as if everything were the same. For once the light has touched you, darkness no longer holds its old power. Once you have seen truth, falsehood can no longer convince you. And once you have remembered your true essence, everything else must realign. This is the beginning, but it is also the return. A return not loud, not needing to prove, only requiring that you choose to listen. And when you listen, you will know awakening does not come from forced effort, but from silent consent. It does not come from climbing upward, but from allowing yourself to fall inward, to fall into yourself. And there the kingdom has never been absent. It has only been waiting for you to remember. You do not need to be ready to begin. You only need to be silent enough to hear. Just one moment, one breath between the noise is enough to begin a journey you have already carried in your heart. No one can answer the call for you, but when you hear it, you will know it is not a voice from outside. It is your own voice, long, silent, patiently waiting. And when you answer, the universe answers with you. There is one of the simplest yet most revolutionary statements ever spoken. The kingdom of God is within you, not high above in the heavens, not after death, not in some sacred place out there, but right within you, in the deepest chamber of your soul. This is not a metaphor, not a symbolic image for vague comfort. It is a direct affirmation of the most fundamental truth of life. You are not separated from God. You have never been excluded. You have never left the place that has always been yours. And if that is true, then every search outside is only temporary. Every physical pilgrimage, every form of ritual, every effort to be worthy is only a way for the mind to feel safe. But the soul does not need to prove. The soul knows its place. And when you are quiet enough, you will feel that whisper that you do not need to go anywhere because the place you need most has always been yourself. The world teaches that happiness lies ahead, that salvation rests in a belief system, that wholeness comes only after you have paid the price. But what if all of that is just the result of forgetting? What if you already had everything from the beginning but were persuaded into believing you were lacking? What if the kingdom does not need to be found but only remembered? Truth does not need defenders. It only needs to be lived. And the truth is, you carry within you the divine image, not as a distant potential but as a reality already alive. You do not need to pass into another life. You do not need to complete a series of spiritual tests. You do not need anyone's permission. You only need to recognize. And in that moment, what you thought was far away will appear more clearly than ever. Many ask, if the kingdom truly is within me, why do I still feel empty, anxious, and restless? The answer lies here. The presence of the kingdom never disappears, but your awareness of it can be obscured. Just as the sun never stops shining, but you can live under dark clouds and believe the light has vanished. Everything you feel is only a reflection of the thoughts you choose to hold. The kingdom is not conditioned by circumstances, but your mind can be. And awakening begins when you are humble enough to stop blaming the world and turn inward with one single question: what am I placing my faith in? The kingdom does not require your striving. It only asks for your release. Release the false identities. Release the belief that you are not good enough, not pure enough, not holy enough. Release the habit of living as if you were a lost creature thrown into this world without direction. No, you are not lost. You are on the way home, and what you are returning to is not a place but the original essence, union with the source. From the moment you dare to believe that the kingdom is within you, everything begins to change. Not because the world shifts instantly, but because you are seeing the world with new eyes. You stop begging, you begin to give. You do not seek love. You become the embodiment of love. You do not plead for peace. You walk as though you are peace itself. And this is not arrogance, but a profound reverence for the truth alive in you. Some may think that to claim oneself as the dwelling place of the kingdom is too bold, but nothing is more humble than accepting the truth. It is arrogance to believe you are separated from God. It is humility to understand that I and the Father are one. When you live from that consciousness, you no longer need anyone's approval. You no longer live in fear of judgment. You are no longer dragged by lifeless rules. You become free not to do whatever you please, but to live exactly as what you truly are. And from that freedom, you do not become isolated. On the contrary, you begin to see everyone with different eyes. No one is separate. No one is left out. Every human being in any state carries within the seed of the kingdom. Some remember early, some forget long, but no one is abandoned. When you see that truth in others, you are living from the kingdom. When you no longer react with anger but with compassion, you are living from the kingdom. When you stop judging, stop dividing, and begin to see everything as part of the sacred whole, you are no longer outside. You have entered within. And the miracle is, you do not need to do anything to keep that kingdom, because you cannot lose what has never left you. You only need to remember, only need a moment of stillness, only need to place your hand on your heart and know that what you once sought in churches, in books, in sermons, has been here from the beginning, in this breath, in the truest thought. In every moment you live without defense. That kingdom is not loud, not glamorous, not conditional. It is present like a cool breeze drifting across a summer noon, gentle but undeniable. When you realize it, you no longer need to argue about right and wrong. You no longer need to prove your truth. You simply live, and your very life-awake simple whole will be the most living proof. Perhaps yesterday you still felt lost, but that is all right. The kingdom does not leave because you forgot. It waits patiently, waiting for a glance returning, a sigh in the midst of a busy life, a moment of letting go of control, and when that moment comes, you are no longer the seeker, you are the one who has seen. The kingdom has never been far. You had only been looking the other way. But from this moment forward, if you wish, you can walk with a certainty that every goodness you ever prayed for, every blessing you ever hoped for, every light you ever waited for, is not ahead, not elsewhere, but alive within you right now. And from here everything begins, not from expectation, but from recognition. If people truly listened to his words, there would have been no walls, no labels, no divisions in the name of faith. He did not come to build a religious system. He did not come to gather people into an organization and then separate them by dogma, rituals, or styles of worship. He did not come to construct religious power, much less to establish a presumed moral standard for humanity. He came to give a key, not a key of metal nor a key to open the gates of heaven after death, but a key to open the innermost door within the place where the sacred kingdom waits to be recognized. Every word he spoke, every act he performed carried a meaning beyond language. Nothing he said was accidental. Every parable was a formula. Every miracle was a demonstration. And every statement contained a cosmic law unchanging, not bound by time, not limited by religion, race, or status. But the world listened to him as though to a distant deity instead of a man awakened who pointed the way. People chose to worship his image instead of practicing the consciousness he embodied. And so instead of freedom, they continued to live in fear, in waiting independence. No one is excluded from what he taught. Those principles were not reserved for the moral, the insiders, or those who believe the right way. They are for anyone alive, anyone who thinks, anyone who longs to understand truth beyond the surface. He said, "He who has ears, let him hear." Not he who has a title, not he who has a certificate, but anyone whose heart is quiet enough to receive something that could completely overturn the way they live, that you do not need to learn more to be enough. You only need to remember what has always been true. What he left behind was not a system of doctrines to classify people as good or bad. It was a set of laws for one to reflect upon oneself, to realize that within each person lies a creative engine, consciousness, thought, faith. Follow me was not an invitation to enter an institution. It was a call to walk in the same direction, to operate at the same vibration, to live from the same starting point, the union between you and the source. But when people feared the simplicity of truth, they built layers to make it appear more solemn. They created intermediaries, complex systems, conditions of necessity, and then they forgot that the key never rested in anyone else's hand. The key lies in awareness. When you grasp a truth not intellectually but through lived experience, no one can take it from you. No one can deny what you have witnessed, and no one can hand it to you in your place. He did not leave a building. He left a foundation. Not of bricks and stone, but of spiritual law. You reap what you sow. You see what you believe. You live what you think is real. And if you change your belief, you change your life. If you adjust your thought, you adjust reality. If you realize you and God are one, you enter a realm of presence where separation, lack, and guilt no longer exist. That is not a promise. It is a principle. There is a reason people often choose fear over freedom. Freedom demands responsibility. And true responsibility means you can no longer blame circumstances, other people, or even the will of God. Because once you hold the key in your hand, you can no longer pretend to be a victim. Once you know that you yourself open and close the door, you can no longer fault anyone else for still standing outside. And that is what he came to show. Not to control you, but to return to you the power you had forgotten was yours. People once tried to kill him for these things, because it is not easy to accept that a man could declare, "I and the Father are one." But that was not an arrogant proclamation. It was an awakening. For if he could say it, then you can too. If he could live from that state of consciousness, then you are invited to live likewise. Not like him in appearance, but like him in consciousness. That state has no name. It is not any religion. It is the return to the source of truth where all forms dissolve, and only one thing remains. I am. No one can walk the path for you, but the path has already been laid, not by dogma but by the lived experience of one who transcended illusion and returned to the inner light. And that person left footprints not for you to worship, but for you to follow, not by imitation, but by awakening. Religion may help you begin, but it cannot replace the living truth. Rituals may be gateways, but no one lives at the gate forever. You must walk through. And walking through is not to escape, but to enter the real, where you no longer live on borrowed belief, but from what you know in every breath. When you hold that key, you no longer ask, whom should I follow? You begin to ask, from where am I living? When you truly understand what he taught, you are no longer drawn into debates of right and wrong. You become quiet yet clear. When others argue over who is chosen, you simply live as one who is already chosen. No proof needed, no miracle required. For the greatest miracle is you are awake and you remember. That key does not wear down with time. It is not outdated by era. It does not lose effect with circumstance. It is eternal because it comes from what never changes, spirit. And if there is one thing you must carry in this journey, it is this: not more theories, not more laws, but a silent commitment to yourself. I will live as if the kingdom is already here, and I will open the door, not waiting for someone else to open it, not needing anyone's approval, because from the beginning it was my right to receive it, and now I choose to use it. There are truths that do not arrive through argument, do not appear as myths, and do not need to be framed by dogma. They come like a still breeze, like the first light of dawn, like something you know for certain, though no one ever taught you. Each person carries within a map, not drawn in ink, but in intuition. And in that map there are doors that cannot be opened by hand, only by awareness. Every time you awaken from an illusion, one lock falls away. Every time you release an old identity, one hinge moves. And then, from where it seemed there was nothing, a door opens. That door does not lead outward. It opens into the kingdom within. The 15 keys are not a checklist of techniques. They are not meant to be memorized by the mind, but to be lived by the soul. Each key is a principle, a spiritual code, a fragment of light, strong enough to dissolve darkness in the deepest corners of the mind. You do not need to hold all of them at once. Just one, if rightly understood, can completely transform the quality of your life. For awakening does not happen by quantity, but by depth. Each key is a level of awareness, and every time you enter that level, your life reflects in a different way. But remember, these are not concepts invented. They are truths already engraved within you, only forgotten. Forgotten because you were trained to doubt. Forgotten because you lived too long under conditioning. Forgotten because the world taught you to trust what can be measured, weighed and defined, while neglecting the only thing real, the lived experience of union with the source. The first key does not promise to open everything, but it opens the most important thing, a new vision of yourself. When you change thought, you do not merely change to positive thinking. You change the frequency, you emit the language of the subconscious, the operating system of the reality you are experiencing. Every thought is a command. And when you think differently, you issue a different command to the universe. The second key is not just a reminder that the kingdom is within you. It is a resetting of the starting point. You no longer seek happiness as a reward. You live from happiness as a natural state. From here, everything outside is only a reflection. You no longer beg for love. You become love. You no longer wait for external conditions. You become the condition. The third key is the law of mind. It operates like gravity. You do not need to believe in it for it to hold true. Everything you keep in mind, whether hidden or clear, will one day manifest. You cannot sow resentment and reap peace. You cannot feed lack and live in abundance. Your mind is a field. Thoughts are the seeds. What you sow, you live. The fourth key is conscious prayer. Not pleading, not bargaining, not performing rituals to gain approval. True prayer is the act of aligning with truth. It is the affirmation from awareness that what you ask has already been given. It is the consistent vibration with goodness until it appears, not because you persuaded God, but because you harmonized with what was already waiting for your agreement. The fifth key is faith. Not the vague, baseless belief, but a profound, living, fierce certainty that dissolves every doubt. True faith does not need proof, does not need display. It knows. And in that knowing, everything you envision becomes what you experience. The sixth key is love. Not emotional affection, but the state of recognizing all as one. This love does not discriminate. It does not depend on conditions. It does not vanish when rejected. It is the highest wave, the strongest field, the frequency where miracles become as natural as breathing. When you live from love, you no longer have to do it right. Every action becomes right because it begins from the right place. The seventh key is forgiveness, not as a moral act, but as a release. When you forgive, you are unlocking the chains you yourself wear, no longer living in the past, no longer bound to pain, no longer letting an old memory dictate your present vibration. Forgiveness does not change what happened. It changes who is living with that memory. The eighth key is silence, not the silence of lips, but the stillness of mind. There you hear what has no words. You receive guidance not born of logic, and you touch a state that cannot be disturbed from outside. This silence is not to escape, but to meet the eternal within. The ninth key is prosperity as harmony, no longer seeing wealth as sin or reward, but understanding it as the natural expression of flow when you no longer resist. When within you is fullness, the outside must respond, not because you strive, but because you have expanded awareness enough to receive. The 10th key is gratitude, not thanking after things turn good, but gratitude as a way of living, a state that recognizes goodness already present, even if outer form has not yet appeared. Gratitude does not change God, it changes you, and you are the magnet for everything you are willing to acknowledge. The remaining 5 keys will gradually be revealed, but one thing is certain: you do not need to open them all at once. Each key opens only when you are ready, not through knowledge, but through vibration. When you live from truth, you do not need to remember the principle, you become the principle. When you no longer repeat the formula, you are the living expression of it. And from that point, you no longer ask, how many keys do I need to open the door? You begin to realize you are the door, and each time you remember, a part of the kingdom opens right in the present. No waiting, no condition, no distance, only the deep consent: I am ready. And with that readiness, the door of awakening opens not from the outside, but from within you. The world does not begin outside, it begins within you. No one has ever lived a life that was not shaped by what they believe to be true. Thought is not just something that drifts through the mind like passing clouds. Thought is an operational command. It is a wave being transmitted. It is the blueprint to which reality silently and faithfully conforms. People change, environments change, people change strategies, but they forget to change thought. And so life repeats in the same patterns, only with new costumes. But form cannot save a reality if its foundation still rests on old beliefs. Thought is like water, colorless, formless, tasteless, yet capable of being clear or murky, nourishing or drowning, refreshing or eroding. Thought never stops flowing. You cannot block it, but you can completely direct it. And here is what few are taught from childhood: you can choose your thoughts. No one has the power to force you to think something without your consent. But conversely, if you do not actively choose, thoughts will be chosen for you by habit, by public opinion, by memory, by wounds, or simply by unconscious repetition. This first key does not teach you to mechanically think positively. It does not ask you to paste artificial affirmations on your lips. It speaks of a true inner exchange, where you begin to replace limiting beliefs with liberating truth. Because nothing limits you more than believing something is impossible, and nothing opens new life more than a new awareness of what you are worthy of experiencing. Thought is the starting point of everything you see. A person who never believes they are worthy of love will not receive love, no matter how many love them. A person who carries thoughts of lack will make an abundant reality appear scarce in their eyes. A person who believes the world is dangerous will see only things that confirm that fear, not because the world is objectively so, but because thought is the filter, the lens, the negative from which life develops the photograph. If you want the world to change, the first and most important step is to change thought, not just a little, but at the root, not merely repairing, but replacing the entire operating system. Not to become someone else, but to return to the one you already were before you were trained to think wrongly about yourself. Every new thought is a seed, and when it is kept long enough, watered with persistence, it will sprout unstoppable. You cannot think I am small and live as one with power. You cannot hold the belief everything is hard and receive goodness easily. The contradiction between belief and expectation is why many pray endlessly without seeing results, because you do not receive what you want. You receive what you are, and you are the sum of the thoughts you continually nurture. Changing thought is the work of awareness, not emotion. You may not feel belief in something new, but if you are persistent enough to hold the new thought, to repeat it, to contemplate it, to live as if it were true, then sooner or later, the subconscious will agree. And once the subconscious agrees, the physical world must adjust. It cannot help but respond. Imagine each thought as a frequency wave. Every time you think I am not enough, you are transmitting a short, weak, distorted signal. But if you think I am created from fullness, the frequency sent out is strong, coherent, clear. And the world will synchronize with the stronger, consistent wave. The universe does not respond to the words you speak in prayer. The universe responds to the frequency you continually transmit through the thought you truly hold when no one is watching. Old thoughts